All right. All right, so we have quorum. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. I appreciate everybody, your time and willingness to participate so we can knock out these few items. And I know time is short, so let's get to it. Let's move on to, are there any changes to the agenda? I'm not seeing or hearing any, so we'll continue as is. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our April 3rd meeting? I see, Kelly, do you have your hand raised?
Would you like to know about spelling inconsistencies specifically with regards to board member names within the meeting minutes?
Yeah, if you could. What we'll do, I think Greg had a change. Is that correct, Greg? I saw that on email. So we can include Kelly, your changes and Greg's changes in the motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, my change is to the Open Meetings Act resolution, not to the minutes.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So Kelly, if you want to just make the motion and include the spelling errors, please.
With regards to page 4, just above agenda item 5, under vote, Carla Kugler's name is spelt incorrectly. With that change, I make a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from April 3rd.
I second that.
All right, we've got a motion by Kelly and a second by her Bryn first. What we'll do, since this is half of us are here and half of us are online, we'll just do a roll call vote of those online, and then I'll do a voice vote of those present here. So all those present here in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. And then switch over to the roll call vote, please.
Okay, Johannes.
Aye.
Greg Trapp.
Aye.
Carlos Romero.
Aye.
Rebecca Estrada.
Aye.
Carl Adams.
Present.
Ashley Long.
Aye.
Debbie Moore. Debbie Moore. Kelly is. Kelly.
Aye.
Paula Espinoza.
Aye.
Debbie.
Did you need my vote?
Yes. The vote on the minutes.
We'll wait for her to come back on. Carl, was that an aye for the minutes?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chair, that was an aye.
No problem. Technology is great until it isn't. Sorry, everybody, we're just waiting for Debbie to reconnect. in our bylaws, we can,
I think the bylaws say that once we achieve quorum, you can keep going.
that's right. Okay. So, just a note in our bylaws, once we achieve quorum, if somebody drops off, we still have quorum, so we can continue. I just wanted to give Debbie a moment to log back in. And we'll see if she comes back to join us. So, I think I heard all ayes for the minutes.
Yeah.
So the minutes are approved. All right. Moving on to the next section, approval of WIOA state policies. We'll start off with the data validation policy. You want to cover that for us?
Yeah.
Ron?
Okay, so the first policy that we are requesting for approval, and Carla Kugler does send her apologies. She was not able to make it. She's in Washington, and she is the chair of the policy subcommittee, so I am speaking on her behalf today. The first policy that we have is the data validation policy. This policy is a new policy. It was approved at our last board meeting. But once it was approved, we needed to submit to our federal program officers at DOL. And so they did a review of it and found just some minor edits that needed to be made. And so we made those edits. They're again, very minor. They're dates changes that needed to be made. There is on page. There was, we did not have such, for example, page 5 of 10, we needed to add a correction of Office of Apprenticeship OA. That was just a minor thing that we needed to add. The other section that we needed to strengthen language in was bullet number 4 on page 7. The very last bullet at the top. We needed to strengthen that language about random sample of records. And everything that we changed in here also was changed in attachment 2. So whatever we needed to change in here, we needed to reflect that in that same attachment. Those were the minor changes in the validation.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments among the board members?
When you
Yeah.
say, when you say the attachment to this policy, or, oh, okay.
Yeah, the attachment to this one.
Oh, that, okay, thank you.
Kelly, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 3 of 10, item 4, training and guidance. I just was curious. It indicates that state staff shall provide data validation guidance, technical assistance, or training. Does this policy serve in that capacity, or will there be something following this for the board?
So the training that's indicated on here is to the local workforce development boards. Did that answer your question?
Partially, yeah. So, okay, we won't be getting anything else, but there will be following guidance as far as technical assistance or training to those local workforce boards?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
I think your question is the process here is identify that we need to get the local boards to comply with the policy, and as such, we may need to assist them or guide them to make sure that they're in line with what we're doing, which is the spirit of this rule.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any. With that, then is there a motion to approve the data validation policy? That's what we'll do.
Also move.
Motion by Mathis, and I think a second by Rebecca.
I second.
Thanks, Carl. For those in the room, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, and then let's do roll call of those online, please.
Greg Trapp,
Aye.
Carl Adams,
Aye.
Ashley Long,
Aye.
Debbie Moore,
Aye.
Johannes, Jimwinyu.
Yeah, aye.
Sorry about that. Kelly,
Aye.
Paul Espinoza. You might have jumped off. You said you had to jump off real quick.
Okay,
So we got Debbie.
Yeah.
We got it.
Did you get Carlos?
Yeah.
did we miss anybody? All right, doesn't sound like it. All right. The data validation policy has been approved. Let's move on to the eligible training provider policy.
Okay, so as Mr. Davis mentioned earlier, there's been quite a bit of work that has gone into this policy. We do have a current policy, which is 16-004 change 1. That is the policy that is going to be rescinded with this new policy, which is going to be DWS 23-005. So this policy, the two main items that needed to be added to this policy are on page 9 and page 12. So I'll start with page 9. Again, this is a policy that was reviewed during a federal monitoring that needed to be updated per that monitoring. So on page 9, number 2, we needed to add a special note of how does New Mexico identify a factor relating to performance for use as one of the criteria for initial eligibility assessment if the provider has not previously collected program data on WIOA performance measures. So as a committee, the state has identified a variety of measures, proxy data to meet this requirement. So any of the following may be used. The training institution's general retention, completion, or placement rate, number of students who obtain employment, number of students who obtain a credential or degree, an internal or outside research narrative describing how the selected training program is effective in improving students' employability and earnings potential. So again, our previous policy did not have the factor that we needed, and so this is one of the main additions to the policy that was required to have.
Are there any questions on this part of the policy?
There's a typo in the first one.
Okay,
Said that, I think it's fine.
Thank you. Scott's gonna give it one more look. So if we go to page 12. The very top of the page, again, New Mexico had not established performance benchmarks in our previous policies. So we needed to determine those established benchmarks. In order to determine those established benchmarks, we use two data sets. One is the Government Performance and Result Act. And then we also looked at our current negotiated state measures to determine the established benchmark for program completion rate and credential attainment rate. We have decided to only require two benchmarks, two performance benchmarks, which are the program completion rate and the credential attainment rate. So we took the GPRA and the negotiated measures and use whichever was lesser of the 80% to determine the 57.28%. And that was, the lesser was the Government Performance and Results Act. So that's how we were able to determine the 57.28%. The credential attainment rate, our negotiated measure was the lower percentage. So we went with the 56.0%. So this is used for continued eligibility. So in order for a provider and its program to continue to be on the state ETPL, they must meet one of these two benchmarks. So it's not both, but one to continue to be on the ETPL.
Is that on an annual basis?
It's on a 2-year basis.
With the credentials that are mentioned here, is there any distinction between like credit bearing or non-credit bearing credentials? It doesn't matter at all. Just any either.
As long as it meets the definition of a credential under WIOA's definition of credential.
Okay, thank you. Also, there's a typo.
Any other questions from the board?
You want to join Scott with everything?
I'm a teacher.
All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any more questions or comments. So is there a motion to approve the policy with the understanding that it will be, there still may be some typos that need to be changed by staff?
So moved.
This is Carl Adams. I'd like to motion to approve.
I got Carl with the motion and the secretary with the second. All right, for those in the room, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move on to the roll call vote, please.
Johannes Shumwinyu,
I'm going to actually oppose this one.
was that a yes?
It was in there.
No. No, it's a no.
Oh, thank you. Rebecca Estrada,
Approve.
Carlos Romero,
Oh, yes.
Greg Trapp,
Aye.
Carl Adams,
I vote to approve.
Ashley Long,
Vote yes.
Debbie Moore,
Yes.
Callie Ropick Orth,
Aye.
and Paul Espinoza.
Aye.
All right, the eligible training provider policy has been approved. All right, moving on to the approval of the State Workforce Board Open Meetings Act resolution. And Greg, would you mind going over the update that you had sent us via email?
Sure. So covered bodies such as the State Workforce Development Board are required annually to approve a determination of what is reasonable notice for our meetings. So that's what this resolution does. It sets 10 days as notice. It describes how we provide that notice. From what was sent out, there is a very minor typo in the now therefore be it resolved. It says that we're gathered this second day of December 2020. That needs to be changed to obviously the 25th day of June 2024.
Okay, so what we do have in front of us, Greg, does already contain your update, so thank you for that. Well, we'll include it in the motion just in case.
Yeah, so I would move to approve the Open Meetings Act, revising the December 2nd date to June 25th, 2024, and then now therefore be it resolved section.
Thank you, Greg.
I'll second.
Was that Kelly with the second? Thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions or comments on the resolution? I'm not seeing or hearing any, so we'll move on to a vote. All those in the room, please say aye if you approve.
Aye.
Any disapprovals, please say nay. All right, let's go to online.
Kelly Ropick Orth,
Aye.
Carlos Romero. Rebecca Estrada,
Aye.
Carlos Romero,
Aye. Aye.
Greg Trapp,
Aye.
Carl Adams,
Aye.
Ashley Long,
Aye.
Debbie Moore,
Aye.
Johannes Chimwinyu,
Yeah, aye.
and Paul Espinoza.
Aye.
All right, the Open Meeting Act resolution has been approved. All right, next up, we have DWS updates, which we kind of covered before we started the meeting. The secretary went over some of the disaster relief efforts. Since not all board members were here, does anybody want a repeat of that now that we're all together? I'm not seeing any, so do you have any other updates for us?
Yes, I just wanted to, so folks in the room have this in front of them, and folks online, we can email you the link, but we had final approval of our state WIOA combined state plan. And I want to thank the team at all of the core partner agencies, including Amber, who's here today, and then especially Veronica here on our end, for getting all those changes made. It's a very cumbersome process. And so now we're able to release the executive summary, which is, you know, the readable version of the 300-page state plan. And so that's what you have in front of you. You're here. Just a couple of highlights. We added some things in here that aren't in the plan, such as the WIOA partners, which we learned from the planning process didn't really exist in one place. And then the planning process, which I think almost all of you participated in. We carried over the strengths and weaknesses on page 7 from some of the exercises we did, and the vision, and then the goals and strategies and stuff are all the same. And then if you head towards the back, starting on page 24, you'll see one-page summaries of each of the sectors that we're covering, and those might be under goal 1 or goal 2. But on each page, there's a little overview of the sector. We tried to rank what we call the labor force challenge, which had to do with the number of jobs posted online, but also this little graph that you'll see below it, which compares the educational profile of the industry to the educational profile of New Mexico. Max, I think this was your point when we were doing one of our first trainings, and then some highlights of things we know are happening in the sector, some strategies that we identified. And then the sector planning level is just whether we're doing that at the state or the regional level. And I think the agreement from our local boards was to make the ones that are sort of under goal 1, the current needs, focused on the regional level. So you'll see early childhood education and care, and first responders and healthcare all being at the regional level. And then some of the more forward-looking industries like aerospace and the biosciences happening at the state level. So our hope is to really make this something that people continue to look at. And we're looking at options right now of how to sort of recreate this in a web format where we can keep a running tally of all the activities that we're doing to further each of these goals. And certainly you can report out on that as well. Just thanks to everyone who contributed to making the summary, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Just a comment. I think this priority sector section is kind of reading on this, particularly as I can deal with the state of the local regional.
The executive summary and the plan should be posted by the end of this week.
Cool. All kinds of people. We told them going to 7, we look at people and like, yeah.
Any other questions? All right. let's move on to chair and board comments. Does anybody have any comments for us?
Well, I'll have one just on this eligible training provider. It's still, and Veronica, I think there are still very confusing pieces in there, but there is a guideline that is doing it, and the guideline is equally confusing. And so the state has done in our process a great job of trying to parse things apart. There's a confusion of providers versus programs versus, and so we worked very hard as a committee to try and clean that up and gain some definition. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't go to another iteration, but we've made huge progress there. I think it provides a lot of clarity. I'll call it roles and responsibilities of what's happening here versus what's happening at the local boards and kind of what the expectation is. So it's been a lot of work, but when you read the rules and the guidelines, if you wonder why it's a little confusing in some cases locally, is because the rules are somewhat confusing as well. So I just want to make that observation.
Thank you, Brad. Any other comments from the board? Yes, Mathis.
Just on that particular topic, I've been involved the past couple of months with a startup up in Santa Fe that's focused on online training. It is already approved under there, but I wouldn't mind taking a look at everything you're doing, looking at it through the lens of this startup in terms of the ability for a startup to understand, what is required of it going forward. So that would be helpful. I'd be delighted to spend some time doing.
Yeah, so our next steps, because obviously the two additional, the factor and the performance is, we've been, over the last 2 years, we've been communicating to the training providers that this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. And so our next step is to host a webinar to go over the new policy with all of the current training providers and any new training providers. So we've got to first train staff, the local ETPL coordinators, to ensure that they have a good understanding, because they are the individuals who are communicating locally with the training providers. So first we need to make sure that they have a good grasp of what's in the new policy and how they can help communicate that to the training providers. And then secondly, we'll host some webinars to give like a refresher for anyone who is been with us and anyone who's wanting to get on the ETPL. So all that should be happening within the next couple of months.
Right, I'll look forward to the webinar. Is this policy, is the policy that mirrors other states? Will we have to every state?
Yeah, so Brad mentioned earlier, we took a lot of good practices, I would say, from Oklahoma's policy.
Okay.
That was recommended to us by our federal program officer. They had done some work with Oklahoma on their ETPL policy. They recommended that we take advantage of what they had. So a lot of changes in language were reflective of their policy. And we did. We look at our neighboring states to see what they have. But we used a lot of Oklahoma's best practice.
In the very back, there's some scenarios, and actually, I think they're very helpful because you start trying to slot yourself in the process. I think the other side, and not to say I can't help myself, is one of the demons in the federal statute is ETPL is eligible training program list, right? But ETPL is eligible training provider list, and so we actually struggle to parse that apart because fundamentally, other than if they're out of state, the local boards we're really looking to them for the program because it serves their region and their activity. And at the state level, we're looking at the provider. But as you start wandering through the rules, it gets a bit murky, and we've done some work to clean it up. We may have to go a little further, but you can be eligible training provider without a program, but you can't be a program without being a provider. So you kind of got to work. And as we went through, and that's the scenarios really helped out. But even Oklahoma, who's done a lot of that, you could actually see where they would struggle trying to mix them up. And so I think one of the things you'll see here is we talk about ETP eligible training providers, and when we talk about ETPL, we really tried to focus on the programs. But we're gonna have to figure out a good acronym process.
Yeah. And I guess I would just add to that, having done a little bit of the work on it, and sitting on a regional workforce board, that I know that we're probably pretty well done with the agenda, maybe for the conference that's happening in August. But I wonder if it wouldn't make sense to have some ETPL sessions, both because obviously we need to get the staff who are handling the ETPL trained, but I think you'll find even some of the regional workforce board members, particularly those who are sitting on any kind of ETPL recommendation committees or doing any outreach into the community. It's probably good for them to have a good sense of what that looks like as well. So having that opportunity for learning, obviously they can be invited to any webinar or any training, but it might be helpful to have it at the conference. And I would also assume that there are other folks. I know Kelly is already chairing the Education and Workforce Committee for us. And there have already been all sorts of conversations and questions around ETPL in that committee. So I think that we'll find if we have the opportunity for all sorts of folks, not just the training providers and the staff who are working with it, but others who are kind of involved in that workforce ecosystem, to have some opportunities to understand it better at the conference, that it would probably be welcome if we have room to do so.
Thanks, Rebecca. I see some heads nodding, so it looks like we might be able to do that. All right, any other comments? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any. I'll just say once again, thank you everybody for all your work. I know the policies were a big one, so thanks for that. Thank you to staff for everything and everything that went into the state plan. That was quite a process, and I have to say this is the best workforce plan process I've ever seen, and consequently, I think the plan is the best we've ever seen. So thank you for that. I think it's going to be well received by the local boards. All I have left is, I think our next meeting is the 22nd of August. That is day 2 of the New Mexico Workforce Conference, and that'll be here in Albuquerque. Do we have the location already?
Not yet, but we will.
Okay. Okay, so location TBD. Hopefully we'll see a lot of you there, both at the conference and the meeting. And that's all I have. Do we have any public comments? Anybody online? Anybody send anything in?
No.
All right. Well then, thank you everybody. We're at the end of our agenda. If there are no objections, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you everybody.
Thank you.